name is Roy, and welcome back to another episode of Sacred Wild Man. Now, this topic of reclaiming sovereignty over your own mind is one that I'm setting specifically and intentionally for 2021 and moving forward. Because my sense is that claiming or reclaiming sovereignty over your own mind is going to be of the utmost importance this year. And in this video, I'll go into why that is, provide you some resources that you can read and look into, and 5 ways that you can begin to take back power of your own mind. Let's jump in. Now, before I go into the importance of the mind, I think it would be helpful to provide some sort of a working definition. I think of the mind as your awareness and your consciousness, that with which you experience the world, how you feel and sense the world, and the mechanism by which you can see and create a certain reality. Now, why this is so important is because your mind is the single most important asset that you have. Because, as mentioned earlier, you can create reality with your mind. You can choose how you respond, and you can choose how to perceive things and kind of move and respond to them in a way that feels most in alignment with who you are, what feels most liberating, what feels most just intuitively right to you. Now, what are the consequences of if you do not have sovereignty over your own mind? I think 2020 is going to be a very good case study of what the consequences of that are. So let's consider the one thing that has been talked about of 2020, the one thing that has been blasted in your face by the machine of the media. Probably catch my drift of what I'm referring to. And it's predominantly been, I would say, a narrative of fear, of be afraid. Now I want you to consider and ask yourself, if you did not have access to media, no phone, no internet, you had no idea what was going on in the world of 2020, why you should be afraid or what other people are afraid of, would you be lacking? Would you be any less worthy or valuable a person because you did not know? I'll let you answer that for yourself. But for me, I would say no. That would not be the case. I would still continue to do what I do, living my life, pursuing whatever passions that I have, and connecting with people that I want to connect with. But why this is important for mentioning is because, let's use the example of media or television. Okay? I'm going to do a little bit of wordplay here. So, television, if you look at the etymology of the word television, it's composed of tele and it's composed of vision. Vision being that image that's being projected, and tele over a distance. So you have this image that's being portrayed to you over a distance. Now, other people have also done a wordplay of television as tell, like I'm telling you something. Tell a vision. And I really like that because that's essentially what TV is doing. That's what any sort of media has the power to do. They have the power to project a specific vision to you and evoke certain emotions and thoughts. And from there, they have a lot of influence because if it gets lodged within your consciousness and your mind, then it can produce a potentially desired effect or an impact. So think about what the consequences of having a fear narrative projected to you 24/7 would do to you. Okay. If you want to learn more about this, you can check out my previous video called Trauma, Meditation, and Ego Death, where I go into that in a little bit more depth. But this is where I have to bring in a little bit of some esoteric knowledge. I think most people at this point have probably heard of it to some degree, which is the pineal gland, which has also been referred to as the Ajna chakra, the third eye, or the first eye. Now, my understanding of your third eye, or the pineal gland, is that it is often referred to as the seat of the soul. And it is through this pineal gland in which a person can experience extraordinary or non-ordinary states of consciousness, a connection to higher realms that are not so dense like this physical incarnation and 3D world. And it's also how people are connected to their intuition and specific visions. And that through taking in these images, these visions, or this knowledge and information through your pineal gland, you then have the power to create and manifest them into the 3D physical world. Now, why is this important? Well, going back to tell a vision. If you are not connected to your pineal gland, if you're not connected to this power and realization that you can create your own reality, then you are at the mercy of whatever image somebody else puts into your consciousness, puts into your mind. And if you feed into it of, this is the only narrative, this is the only narrative, this is the right narrative, along with all the thoughts and feelings that go with it, then you, in effect, will bring to reality that vision that was put into your mind and your consciousness. Now, I got to bring in the Matrix, right? To me, that is not a movie, but it is a documentary. And they talk about this very thing. There's this one scene where Morpheus explains to Neo that, these entities, whatever it is, that have these ill intentions, desire to turn a human being into this. And he holds up a battery. So essentially a power source. A power source for what? Perhaps feeding and creating the reality that those entities want to create. Now consider the power behind that, right? If you can have a mass population of people who do not have sovereignty over their own mind, do not realize the power of their own mind to create reality, and you have all of them at the mercy of the image that you want them to soak in over and over and over, repetition, and to feel the reality of that vision, then you have an extremely large power source to generate and create that reality for you. This is why when I came upon this realization of the power of the mind, I thought, this is far more powerful than if you were to, try to slaughter a mass population of people. Like, why do that if you can harness and hijack the power of their consciousness and their mind to create what you want them to create your vision, the vision that you want to tell them. Now, if this sounds a little bit too esoteric, I'm going to bring it to a little bit more based and relatable an example, which is the self-fulfilling prophecy. I imagine most of you are aware of what that is, but if you are not, the self-fulfilling prophecy is that whatever you constantly tell yourself and think, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is what's going to be real, is going to happen because you are feeding into that reality. You're telling yourself, I'm never going to get that job. I just can't get that job. I'm not qualified enough, or I just can't get this relationship, he's too good for me, or she's too good for me. We're not even in the same league. Well, yeah, you're going to create that reality because you're telling yourself so. And you're going to subconsciously or unconsciously work in a way to make that true. So even if you have, say, somebody who is interested in you romantically, right? Who to you might feel they're out of your league, but they could care less. They're just fascinated with you. You will do all these little tricks and mental gymnastics to tell yourself, no, she's crazy, or, I'm terrible. There's no way this could work out. And you will, in effect, create that. That is the self-fulfilling prophecy. So, back to the power of the mind. If you don't have control over that, and you're just going along with whatever vision and the feelings associated with that vision that somebody else puts into your mind and your consciousness, then you are at the mercy of somebody else. You do not have power to create your own reality, and you're going through life in a manner of kind of just floating around, right? It is the world against you, as opposed to the world is available to you, and that you get to mold what exists. Now, the moment you begin to realize this, and if you truly recognize the gravity of this, it might feel kind of sort of like an existential crisis, of like, wait, what is going on here? Like, this is a little bit disconcerting to think about, and I would say that makes perfect sense why you would feel that way. And especially once you start going against the grain, to think, maybe I want to question some things, right? Think about how you grew up, all the traditions and beliefs that you inherited. Because as children, we come into this world, it just seems that we come into this world with some sense of a blanket of amnesia, or a blank slate. And we learn through observation. We learn through what others are telling us and reflecting to us. And we take those things as truths, right? I was born into a Christian family, so I must be Christian. I was born into a Muslim family, so I must be Muslim. Whatever religion, other beliefs, political ideologies that you hold, often those are based around the people and community that you're born into. Now, the risk when you begin to question that, it doesn't even mean you're trying to offend other people, but that's how it's taken these days. Is if you go against the grain, it means, oh, you're going to offend me. Is that what you're doing? It just means you're shifting your mind, your perception, and your consciousness. You're actually expanding outside of that box that you've been put in. And what begins to happen? Like the movie The Matrix, you have these Agent Smiths that begin to show up. Like, hey, I see and hear that you're going against the grain. You're stepping out of line here. And, there's some consequences for people who step out of line. You know that? And this is where people can get stuck. They can be stuck in these entrenched patterns of fear, of just stay in line, right? The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. I don't think it's an accident that it's called a TV program, because just like software that you can program to function in a specific way, TV and media can do that too. Abide by these beliefs or else. So now that I've covered the mind, what it is, why it's important to have sovereignty over it, the consequences of not having sovereignty over your own mind, let's go into some resources. So I have 3 resources for you, and they're all books. One is titled The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Another is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And then finally, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Now, of those 3 books, I've only read the first one and the third one. I have not read the one by Dr. Joe Dispenza, so I cannot vouch for that. I've only heard that other people said that it was a very beneficial book to them, an eye-opening book for them. But just briefly, for why the biology of belief was so impactful for me, is that it helped me understand the difference between my conscious mind and my subconscious mind. And very importantly, learning about the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. So I'm not going to go into those any further, because my desire is that you'll have at least some curiosity from hearing about it to begin to read it yourself. But the whole idea is that it illustrates just how powerful your mind is and belief is to create a certain reality. And then the book, The Untethered Soul, was also very impactful, because it helped me realize that I am not my own thoughts. I am not even my own emotions and feelings, but that I am the awareness, I'm the observer who is experiencing all of these things. And so I can sit back in an observer mode, a little bit more neutral, a little bit more detached, and then from there decide how I want to respond to these stimuli. So those are the resources. Check them out. Let me know what you think of them and how they impact your life. And finally, 5 ways that you can begin to reclaim sovereignty over your own mind. The first one is very cut and dry and simple. Cut out all social media. Cut out mainstream media, right? I can't tell you a prescriptive. My suggestion is that you decide what feels right to you. Maybe you take small steps, or you can just do extreme cold turkey and see how that goes for you. I've heard people do both, and both have their advantages, disadvantages. But overall, I've heard people say that they feel a lot less stressed and just a little bit more happier after cutting those things out. Because again, you no longer have this fight or flight mechanism that is evoked in you with all of these news stories. Because if you pay attention, they're all negative. They're all fear-based. It's all fear porn. Now, why is that so important to keep people in a state of fear? Again, I'm going to refer back to my video on trauma, meditation, and ego death of why that might be. So that's the first step, something you can do. The second thing that I would recommend is something I've mentioned in previous videos, which is to separate thoughts from the emotions or the feelings and sensations. So for example, let's say it's the job example I gave earlier. And the thought the person might have is, man, I don't deserve this job. Like, I'm not qualified for this job, right? Separating that thought and be like, okay, I'm observing and noticing that thought and sticking with the feeling and the sensation. What is there? Identify that to the smallest detail that you can. It's like, oh, maybe like I'm feeling a pit in my stomach. I'm feeling my chest is tight. I'm feeling like my hands are cold and clammy all of a sudden and they're sweaty. And just stay with the sensation. Leave the narrative alone, right? Just set it aside and stay with the sensation. And what you notice is that the longer you can stay with a sensation, that you can compassionately offer your attention to the sensation, it begins to shift. And then you can begin to treat that sensation almost as if it's an infant, right? How would you take care of an infant who is feeling that way? Would you keep spinning a narrative, or would you punish the infant? Or would you be like, hey, I get it. It makes sense why you would feel this way. And then you begin to kind of release and process that feeling and sensation, which then would create a different state of mind for you then to respond to whatever external stimuli that you need to respond to. Now the third step, which piggybacks off of that, or maybe it comes before that, would be meditate. Meditate every day. And starting out somewhat small, maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes a day. And doing so with the intent of, I'm just going to focus on one single point of attention. And so this, I believe, is the style of Vipassana meditation. They offer retreats, I think, all over the world. But the whole idea is like, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I have not actually gone to one of these retreats myself yet. But the focus in the beginning is to just focus your awareness here, underneath your nose and above your lip, where the air goes in and out of your nostrils. And anytime your attention drifts, bringing it back. And eventually you'll develop this ability to kind of just hold that focus, but also a sense of expanded awareness. And then from there, you can begin to just work with, perhaps this is like the Zen Buddhist tradition of just observing everything. If a thought comes in, okay, I see it, and I let it go. If my foot or some part of me starts to itch, okay, I observe that, and then I let it go. But everything is being filtered through your conscious awareness. Nothing escapes it, and nothing is held on or tightly grasped or attached to. It's just seen, acknowledged, and then it's let go. And this begins to just cultivate your ability to control your own awareness, control your own mind. Now, the fourth way that you can begin to reclaim power over your own mind is to repeat some affirmations. Now, 2 of these that I'm going to offer to you, you can choose one or both, or you can even come up with your own that feel best for you. The first one would be, I am reclaiming sovereignty over my own mind. Just repeating that over and over, even if it doesn't quite feel like, oh, I can't believe that. No, like that just doesn't resonate with me. Keep repeating it, because if it's triggering something in you of, no, I don't believe that, that's exactly the thing that you need to work with. Right? It's kind of like this idea of if you were to tell yourself, I'm deserving of love, and then some part of you pops like, no, you're not. That's exactly the thing to work with. And the second affirmation would be, I am calling back all power that I may have given away consciously or unconsciously. And the idea behind this one is that there are times where we don't even consciously know that we're giving away our own power. Like maybe the group decides, hey, we're all gonna do this. And you're like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna do that because the group said so. Maybe you don't think that consciously, right? It's just a subconscious reflex. But therein also lies an example of when you just so easily give away your own power, when you might have felt different. What would it be like for you to say, actually, you guys can all go get drinks. I'm actually just gonna go for a walk around the lake. I don't feel like drinking. I'm gonna take a walk around the lake. So try those out or create your own. And the last step that I have for you is to nurture your dreams and visions. Now this one is so important because we all have something, right? And it doesn't have to be big, like, oh, I'm gonna be this great big coach, public speaker type person and I'm gonna change the world. It could just be like, I wanna create a garden in my backyard. I wanna grow my own food, okay? And these passions, these dreams, however big, however small, are important because they are the things that are most closely aligned with who you are, most closely aligned with the, say, highest expression of who you are. When a person gives those up, when a person stops feeding into them because maybe they get criticism from others outside, or they just feel, this is too hard, and there's not enough belief in their own efficacy to make it happen, then they begin to give away their own power and they begin to settle for less. They settle for scraps. All the while, a part of their soul is kicking them, and that's where a lot of the self-hate comes from, is because the narrative goes, you are playing small. You are playing way less than your highest potential. Now, why are you doing this? Why aren't you going for it? The very things that you want to go for. Like that's one of the internal dialogues I've had much of my life. And I try to push it away through numbing or distractions. Like, oh, let me look at games. Let me go look at porn. Let me go eat a ton of food so I don't have to deal with this. But that's the very thing that I needed to deal with. And as I've begun to address that more, I'm finding more energy. I'm finding more invigoration. I'm finding more creativity because I am now coming back into alignment with those dreams and visions that are in closest alignment with the highest expression of who I am. I'm no longer settling for less. And through that, I've been calling back and reclaiming power over my own mind and what I want to create, what I get to create, my birthright to create and leave an imprint on this world in a way that benefits myself and others to the highest degree. All right. So those are the tips that I have for you. Try one or try all of them and leave a comment below about how it goes for you when you try those tips and what impact they have on you and helping you to reclaim sovereignty over your own mind. I can't emphasize enough that moving into 2021, it's going to be absolutely vital for you to find and reclaim sovereignty over your own mind. I do not anticipate that 2021 is going to be any less intense than 2020. In fact, I anticipate that there will be more curveballs thrown at us. And the only way to be able to weather these is if you have a strong internal foundation, a strong internal sense of self and sense of agency and empowerment, so that regardless of what the external circumstances are, you are able to remain rooted. And the number one way to do that is through power over your own mind and not at the mercy of what all this external stimuli and noise outside is telling you. Right? remain grounded and in your center internally. I wish you all the best in 2021, and may you experience much of the growth and confidence, peace, joy that you have been looking for. Best wishes. Peace.